Okay, let's look at the January 2024 OA past paper answered by me. First question starts off by asking what are two desirable skills that a clerk working in a general office could have? This is a skills question, right? So I chose written communication, which is always a shoo-in, and computer literacy. You also could have said any of this stuff down here. Problem solving, numeracy skills, good at office software, multitasking, verbal communication, interpersonal skills, time management. All of those are valid because it's like general office desirable skills, okay? So 2 marks in the back there. Here they came to talk about a company that employs over 200 people. What are some benefits of working at a large organization? It will be a good addition to your resume to have a more prestigious place in your career history, and that there are more opportunities for like career development and skills training, which facilitates personal development and career enhancement. I went in a little bit with that answer, but if you have the ability to explain why you said that, then I think it's going to make a lot more sensible answers acceptable, which is always good, right? So in this case, like if the company would send you away to Canada to do a training somewhere, that's something that's not going to happen at like a roti shop or something. That's a benefit, right? Okay, so they currently have this records management system for each floor. What they mean by that is that it's decentralized, right? What's one reason why they might want to consider a centralized records management system? In this case, bringing all of the files into one place to keep them, right? So I said they should consider moving all the files to one place so they can have greater control over document security, as fewer people would have access directly to their files. It would also decrease the risk of data leaks and other mishandling of important confidential information, right? That's always pretty good. That's kind of textbook. What would happen? If they had asked disadvantages, it could have been like it's going to take longer to get the files back from here, there, and everywhere. And, it might take longer to access the files because there's not a specialized person dealing with it, right? Pretty much any flaw that you could think of in not having something be in one place could apply there. And again, a lot of times it works out if you can just make it make sense that this will reduce productivity or reduce profit. That's what you're not trying to have in a business scenario, right? All right, so this next company now has been in operation for 2 years. They have a CEO, a receptionist, and office attendant. They're expanding and they need to hire 6 additional people. So what they want us to do is use this list below to complete this table by filling in a position that corresponds to each job description. So they did the first one for us. As you can see, there are more options than there are spots, so that's what I did. This is another way to ask that same old question of what are some functions of people working here. The one thing that everybody makes a mistake about, according to the syllabus, is that, I should say human, but anyway. There's a difference between the manager and the clerk. The manager does literally more boss-like things, and the clerks do more assistant-like things. So if you see like here that somebody is going to be assisting, then start reaching for an assistant or clerk type of thing. So that's what helped me do this. Who manages the finances? The accountant. Who develops training programs for staff? That's going to be the manager of HR, right? Who maintains the database of personnel records? That's a clerk job, HR. Who develops marketing strategies? Marketing manager. Made the most sense to me, right? And who assists the CEO? The administrative assistant. That makes sense. So 2 marks for that. This was another question here, 7 marks. That was a lot more dominant. It's an organizational chart. So I'm not 100% sure about this, but often 100% certainty isn't required once you demonstrate that you have the idea intact, right? It starts with the CEO, and I could tell just from what I knew that HR manager and sales manager were going to have to come above the somebody as a clerk. So these two spots where you could come from the CEO to who he's managing directly and to who they're managing directly, I chose to put the HR manager and HR clerk in there, and then sales manager and customer service clerk made maybe the most sense to me. I put the marketing manager over here. They're just floating, they're not really managing anybody. The accountant is down from the CEO, but not being directly managed, so okay, that's why I put him there. I wondered if the administrative assistant should have gone here, but I thought that the accountant would have a slightly senior role, so I put them up here. Purchasing clerk was just a floating person, they didn't seem to have a manager, and then the administrative assistant I ended up putting down here. I could have believed that this could have been swapped to administrative assistant Hill because they're assisting the CEO. The accountant may be Hill and the purchasing clerk may be down here, but I chose to at least have all of the managers be on the same level and all the clerks be on the same level, and that seemed to make the most sense. The only thing we could have flipped around really and truly is the administrative assistant and the accountant, but I don't know why the accountant is technically lower than the clerks would be. So that's why I didn't do that. That's how I came up with this, okay? All right, so next question, question 2. A damaged package was received in the mailroom. What are 3 procedures for dealing with a damaged package? This almost required using your imagination. They do talk about this a little bit in the textbook and stuff, but not 3 procedures. I thought that was reaching a little bit. So make a note that the package arrived damaged, so that they know that you didn't damage it or you didn't open it or something. Get the delivery note and any other proof of handling by the courier service in case we have to return it. Secure the package and notify the intended recipient for further action is what I would do. I wondered if refused delivery was in the prerogative of this person, but I didn't choose to put that in because it didn't seem quite right to me. But definitely making a note that it arrived damaged and gathering the delivery note. You could also have said inspect the extent of the damage, I suppose, because that would help to clear up a lot of what you should do next. So outline one benefit of using each of the following sources to advertise information about job opportunities. The company website will allow potential applicants to get familiar with the company's public image, goals, and standards prior to applying. It's also probably like cost effective, reaches a lot of people, that kind of thing. Local newspaper will allow a greater number of potential applicants to see the ad because of the large readership of the paper. I think that's pretty legit, and probably the answer they were looking for. Here we have a telephone message form. This isn't hard to do, except that you need to do a lot of fill-in-the-blank stuff and just make sure that you are focusing on what's going on. So on this date, this guy called for Mrs. John. So the message is for Mrs. John. The date is January 2nd. The time of the call goes here. The name of the caller is Roden Smith, Mr. He's from Regent High School. His number, telephone, urgent. He called. Please call him. In the message, I put Principal Smith called to discuss an urgent issue with the recent delivery of laptops, which were apparently delivered without power cables. He asked that you contact him as soon as possible at any time before 4 p.m. when he will leave office. So that seemed reasonably simple and pretty good. So fill in the blanks for 8 marks, but just make sure you underline everything so you could put it over correctly, right? Taken by Terry Lake. Okay, so moving to the next question, 3. They state 3 reasons why organizations convene general meetings. I have to assume they meant annual general meetings. So they would do that to keep the shareholders up to date with developments and changes being made within the organization. So for this, you're thinking like large credit unions, unit trust, JMMB, these kinds of people. Every time they're having these functions and they come to talk about what we're doing, where we're going, changes we made, who's on the board, those kinds of things, that type of meeting. So to conduct financial reporting prior to dispensing shares, and to give shareholders an opportunity to request and receive direct feedback about the dealings of the company. So you could have said also to elect new board members. Well, I don't know if they'd be electing them right there, but to discuss that they're up for election, to discuss the goals of leadership in the future. That's a decent answer, right? Explain the role of each of the following personnel at a general meeting. What does the chairperson do? They conduct the meeting by inviting parties to speak, announcing the business to be attended to, and presiding over voting. Their role is to ensure a smooth and productive meeting. I put this last sentence here to clarify anything that was potentially problematic above, so 2 marks, right? Good rule of thumb is, like 1 mark per sentence, so, if they're giving you 2 marks, you should probably go a little bit further, or at least make sure that you said more than one thing. So this is 1 sentence, but the proxy stands in on behalf of an absent meeting member and has the right to vote in their place should a vote arise. So that's like 2 things that they do in a little more detail, so I thought that was all right. Okay, so Mr. Glenn Charles has been invited to attend a conference in Europe in March 2024. The flyer below provides information on the registration, accommodation, meals, and tours that will be included in the conference activities. Okay, so this is a flyer, and you see, as I said, he has registration, accommodation, meals, and tours. They come in 2 different strengths, so to speak, intense and regular. Here again, intense and regular, intense and regular, intense and regular. So the question on this was, if management gave him $2,000 to cover the trip, and he needs to spend 4 nights at the hotel, and he has this $50 for incidentals, how are we going to make that trip work, assuming that you're a clerk? So they say use this travel expense form to select options for each activity and hence determine the total cost of the trip. I used the whole budget, not really intentionally, but yeah. So his registration, I gave him regular. Accommodation, he had the garden view, which was regular. The meals, he had the more expensive option. He got the a la carte and not the buffet. And then he got the basic island tour, right? With his 4 nights of incidentals used up, that came up to 2,000 like that. So I happened to plan that trip within budget, so that was good, right? You could have come in below budget if you had given him cheap everything, but I didn't want to do that, so that's how I went with it, right? Okay, question 4. State 2 types of leave other than vacation leave that employees are normally entitled to take. So I went with sick leave, which is a shoo-in, and bereavement leave, which is a thing too if somebody dies. You could have said maternity leave, study leave, or even no pay leave, and that would have been fine, right? The employees of Selection Enterprises have complained to the union that they are not happy working with the company. Outline 2 initiatives that the Human Resource Department could take to improve job satisfaction. Okay, so HR could offer training that would lead to potential promotions. This would facilitate a positive sense of upward mobility in the workers' careers. HR could conduct performance appraisals and offer a pay increase to high performers. This would cause the workers to feel valued and improve their financial well-being. So again, you see I did the thing where I say what HR could do and what the effect on the worker would be. I tried to mix that idea. I was also struggling with, in the real world, the company is not too interested in just paying people more money, but okay, in this exam world, let's just say that that would work and the workers would feel valued, right? And then financial well-being would increase if their pay increased. That was a reasonably decent answer, I thought. All right, C, we now say Best Books International is a bookstore that's located here in New York, and they export books and magazines. So there's a national library in Barbados, and they want to buy West Indian novels available at the library. So the library needs information such as books that are available, terms and conditions of sale, payment options, and the most suitable way of delivering the order. So assume that you're the purchasing clerk and write a letter of inquiry requesting the relevant information. So the format with letters is that I always say we date them. You put your address and then you put the date as a splitter. And then you put the address of the party that you're writing to, right? So in this case, because they're a business and this is something they check for, you kind of want to structure their address, well, our address, I should say, let me stick with that, the address of the writer as a letterhead, right? So I've just put it to the center like this, and I even included these little fake details of their phone and fax number, just to prove that this is a letterhead, right? Barbados National Library, and they have an address, 123 Coral Drive, Bridgetown, Barbados, right? So they gave us that, and I put it in there. So this forms a letterhead and is probably a large part of the format marks that you'd have gotten for understanding that. You put the date here, you're cool. The manager of sales, I wrote to. I just chose for that to be the person. I put their address in, dear sir or madam, and then subject line. You could also have put but because this is the first time you're writing to them, I wouldn't have put I put subject because they don't know who you are. And I just started with, I write to your fine establishment to inquire about the procedure for importing novels from you to expand our literature collection. We are particularly interested in your titles by West Indian authors, which we believe will be a brilliant addition to our shelves. We are interested in finding out what the policies and procedures surrounding this proposed transaction would be. So that's like an introduction to where we're going with this. Please kindly inform us what West Indian author titles you have in stock, as well as your terms and conditions for international purchases. We must also know what methods of payment will be viable for you. And I inserted this detail, which is totally made up in terms of they didn't tell me to do that, but just because of what this exam is, and I know wire transfers are a thing, I wanted to mention that. So I continue. We have previously used wire transfers for overseas payments, but we would like to come to an agreement as to which methods are preferred by your company. As for the matter of shipping, we also would like to know which couriers you would propose for long-distance orders. We have previously had success with the services provided by Busy Bee Shipping, and we would recommend them. Please let us know if you have another established shipper and what steps must be taken to work with them. Thank you in advance for your consideration of our desired purchase. We look forward to hearing from you at a near future date. For any further clarification, please address any concerns to the purchasing department of our headquarters at the address above. Sincerely, Sharon Freeman, the purchasing clerk. Right, so what I was focusing on is asking what books are available, and I did that here. Then there was, what are the terms and conditions of sale? I just put that right here. The next thing they wanted to know was payment options. So that's where I came down to talking about the wire transfer thing. Where was that? Just right here. And then they wanted to know about this last thing, delivering the order most suitably. So I talked about, shipping long distance orders and how that would go. Right, so between format and including all of the information that they wanted, I think this letter was reasonably decent. You could have been more brief, and that would have been fine, but for 9 marks, this is a good place to spend some time expanding a bit, so I did that. Okay, 5, state 2 functions of the customer service department. I said they handle product queries from customers or potential customers. They dispense information about promotions, discounts available, or sales, or anything like that. You could have said they handle complaints, they give advice on product fit, they provide general information about customers' accounts. All of those would have been good. So CSRs in general, what do they do? Then we asked, outline 2 steps a company should take to prepare for an audit. I couldn't really think of great answers for this. So I said, firstly, just knowing that an audit is when independent people come in to look over your books, your financial records. They could prepare by having their records readily available for inspection, and they also should ensure that all accounting records are up to date to avoid unnecessary delays in the audit. Right? We skip past that one. Part C of this now, they began talking about bank rec. Now I know bank rec can be challenging for people, but one, I have a video on this, so you can look at that. But 2, it's not that complicated. It's actually easy, because in the end, what really happens is that you have to add some things and subtract some things, and you just need to know which things. So let's read this. Tobias Stationery recently received a statement from its bank. However, as the accounts clerk, you have noticed there are some differences between the cash book and the bank statement. So use this information to prepare a bank rec statement for the end of the month, starting with the balance as per cash book. So you're seeing the information here. And then there's going to be a form like this here, right? Checks showed that the following were the reasons for the differences. Sometimes you have to find the reasons for the differences yourself by just looking at the 2 statements and noting what's different, literally comparing the in and out column of the cash book and the bank statement with each other and just finding whatever's not in there. Now, the simplest way I have to explain this is this corpel thing here. When they ask you to start with the cash book, right? So the C here is for, you have to update the cash book. So basically, there are going to be some legitimate charges that are only seen at the bank. So in this case, this first issue here is that bank charges of $75 weren't entered in the cash book. Because remember, the cash book is this book that lives at home in the office. So anything that happens to money in our account at the bank, it doesn't print out in the book at home. We can only see that after they send the bank statement at the end of the month. So if anything happens at the bank alone, like loan payment or a standing order for something or bank fees or something, that doesn't print in the book at home, so you wouldn't see that. So the first step is to watch the bank statement for the legitimate charges that happen at the bank, and then add those figures to the in and out columns, respectively, of the cash book, right? That process is known as updating the cash book. After that, there are 2 other legitimate things that could go different, and that's unpresented payments and late lodgements, right? Unpresented payments and late lodgements are a delayed check. An unpresented payment is when somebody gets paid by us, the business, so we slide a check across the desk to them with the, right, we paid you, we write that down nice in our book, right? But they could take that check and keep it in their pants pocket or back at their office or whatever, and they're not bound to cash it at the bank and reduce our bank balance until they're ready, right? So that makes that an unpresented payment. So when you have an unpresented payment, you're going to add that, right? So that's what the AU stands for, add unpresented payments. And then the next thing is a late lodgement. A late lodgement is exactly the same thing as an unpresented payment, but it's when we do it. So what that means is that somebody slid a check, a payment across the desk to us back at the office, but we still have it in the desk drawer. We didn't take it in, there was traffic, we took it to the bank, but the bank didn't process it in time for that to show up on the bank statement. So when you see late lodgements, you're going to minus those. That's the LLL, less late lodgements. All right. So I talked about all of that, but what does that really mean? It just means that you're going to need to find out whether you need to add or subtract things in here. So bank charges is a bank side only transaction. You're going to minus that because it's money that came out and it was supposed to come out, but you just didn't have that in the cash book. So they don't have a cash book for you to fill in like they do sometimes, but you're going to take that out because that's $75 in bank charges, you take that out. Dividends, which is a payment to you, were received by the bank. So that's another thing that just happened at the bank. You got $150 you didn't know about. So you write that down by the cash book, that plus $150. Then cash amounting to $200 was lodged in the company's account after the statement was prepared. The word lodged is a clue. This is a late lodgement. Even if you don't understand, just remember less late lodgements, right? That is us. I'm always saying if the secretary took less late lunches, there would be less late lodgements. It should be fewer, but that helps you to remember that these late lodgements are our fault, right, for depositing the check too late for it to make the statement. So you have to less late lodgements, right? Just remember that. Then no entry was made in the cash book for the standing order of $90. What this means is that a standing order is a bank side transaction. So money came out of the bank we didn't know about, so you take that out, minus, right? A check for $180 was drawn for a customer, but the customer hasn't yet presented the check to the bank. So that's going to be an unpresented payment. It's still in his pants pocket or something. So in this case, just add unpresented payments. It's going to be plus $180. And then bank interest was credited by the bank but not entered in the cash book. This is a bank side transaction, and credits increase the bank balance as seen from the bank's POV. I have a video on this which you should watch if you're really confused about this. But bank interest is money that you got, is the point, so it's plus 65. Right, I know that seems concerning, but what you're going to have here, in terms of how to fill this out, is that you have your balance in the cash book, 300 is what you thought you had, and this is the balance on the bank statement, $330. And so this is all the adding and minusing that helps you to see whether this is legit or a problem. So you're going to add the dividends, and you put that here, 150, and you put the balance under here, it's now 450. The unpresented check from this guy, you're going to add that back, you now have 630. Add the bank interest of $65, now you have $695. So your adjusted cash book total is going to be $695, which is how much money you'd have had if these other things didn't happen. But bank charges of $75 happened, bringing you down to $620. Late lodgement of this check happened, bringing you down to $420. The bank had a standing order, which brought you down to $330. And so the new balance that you had remaining was $330, which is the same thing that was reported by the bank. So all of that, up and down and in and out, comes down to just knowing that you're going to update the cash book with anything that happened at the bank only. So standing order means out, dividends means in, bank charges means out, Interest credited means in. So you're just going to put these in the in and out column same way, and you get the updated cash book balance. After that, you're just going to add back the unpresented payments, which is checks we gave out that people didn't cash yet, and then you're going to less late lodgements, which is checks that we received that we didn't cash yet, and your bank rec will come out fine. I was going to say there is another way they can ask you to do this, starting with the bank balance. And so that is Blue Paul, I like to say. You start with the bank statements and you update it the same way. Then you less the unpresented payments and you add the late lodgements, like an inverse of what's happening here. So instead of cash book, add unpresented payments, less late lodgements, it's bank statements, less unpresented payments, add late lodgements. Blue Paul. Let's hope that doesn't come up. You should be all right. Okay, so we took a little while with that one. Let's go on to the last question now. Describe one way in which corporate communication department can improve the image of the company. I said they can send a press release featuring the company's, meritorious activities and initiatives to the media for publication, so they can do good press, right? Explain the purpose of each of the following documents in the transport office. The destination sheet holds crucial delivery information like the method of delivery, the customer's address, the type of vehicle used for delivery, and any special instructions for the courier. Certificate of origin contains details about the start point of a shipment, which are used by customs to ensure that goods are safe and legal to allow across shipping borders. All right, so that's stuff there. Then you had a fill in the blanks question. It was worth fully 9 marks, right? So you'd have to underline to pull out all of this information correctly, right? But on this date, these people placed an order with this company, and so the details are here. They bought 5 reams of paper, 10 boxes of pens at this cost. This is who they're delivering it to. This is the order number, and it was dispatched 3 days after the order was made. Okay, and then this is the address of the buyer, and their contact information. This is probably the most complicated part of this, the agreed terms of sale, right? So 10 days, 5 20 days, net 30 means what kind of discount will we give you if you pay by when? It's a perk, right? So if you pay us within 10 days, we get you 10% off. If you pay us within 20 days, we get you 5% off. If you take as long as 30 days, you have to pay the whole thing. That's what this means, right? So when they say payment was received on January 11, what they mean by that is calculate which one of these discounts would apply. So they paid right after, inside the 10 days from this placing of the order, and when it shipped, so they get the 10% discount. So this looks like a lot to do, and it feels like a lot to do when you're doing it, but you fill in, right? Date, order number, ship via express mail, terms, you just wrote it back here. This is their address and their phone number and stuff. The quantity of this, you have to use a calculator to do some math here. Yes, a calculator is allowed on paper too. So 5 times this. I'm not sure I use a calculator for this, so forgive me if these numbers are wrong, but the concept is right. Okay, so you come up to the total. You get this 10% discount that they're entitled to. You do some subtraction. If you do it like I did mine, you get $4.95, and yeah, you fill in there. So that was the end of this paper. You do get extra space in case you mess something up, but overall, that's what was there.